about Trappist, for example, I knew that they were happening because somebody leaked it on Twitter, right? And that was 2 weeks before the event. So scientists are great gossipers, and they have a really great tool for getting that information out. So you can imagine that while we have this nice set of rules of, okay, do this, and then do this, and then do that, and then inform the government, and then speak to the General Secretary of the UN, and then go public. No. That's not going to happen. You're going to have a detection, you're going to speak to your pal, they're going to speak to their friend, and then it's going to go through enough connections that the person at that end is not that interested in what your situation
protecting,
is. And they'll say, well, you know what, I think this is so salacious that I'm going to publish it. And by publish it, I mean I'm going to tweet it at 3 a.m. after a few glasses of wine. And then all of a sudden it's out of your hands, right? And the aftermath of that, I guess, is up to, people who work in the arts and humanities to try and figure out, what would human beings do if all of a sudden this kind of splashed onto your newspaper the next day.
At least in the short term, though, the ramifications of that are more for us than for them, just given interstellar distances and the lag time if you could communicate back. I mean, this is a bombshell, obviously, for our civilization, but they won't know that we've received it, at least initially.
Yeah. So if we were to get a transmission, for example, from Proxima Centauri, how long would it take to get information back to them?
About 3.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'd just be kind of waiting around unless we're sending continuous stream of information, but we still wouldn't hear, and unless they're sending a continuous stream of information.
Exactly.
Like a general kind of you say something, I say something conversation is going to take a long time.
Yeah, so you've got the 3.5 years travel time each way, and also the time that it takes to compose the message. And I think this is another thing you have to touch on, which is that you're speaking on behalf of the entire planet, and it's getting nations to agree on what to say.
Yes.
So what do you do? A lot of people when they're, for example, when Voyager was launched to explore the outer planets, there was a record of material on it, so it was basically like a vinyl LP but made out of gold, and on that record they put all kinds of information, and that was launched by an American team. So all the things that went onto it were things the Americans picked. They did their best to try and include all sorts of different aspects of Earth culture, but they had the final say in what was on it.
Yeah, well, Americans aren't particularly biased in their view of the world. So I think probably that was a good a good global view, right?
I think sarcasm travels well in podcasts. So I think what's going to be the biggest challenge in that is not just the 3.5 years it takes, which is a long time in itself, but I imagine that we'll spend more time composing the message than the message being in transit.
And arguing, arguing about what not to say too.
And my opinion is that there's probably going to be more than one message going along. There'll be, for every sort of well-designed message that comes with the imprimatur of the UN, there's going to be another message from somebody in their backyard with the correct kit. Because the other thing is that...
It is totally possible for Backyard Joe to just kind of
radio astronomy is more democratic than it used to be.
And I think you have to look at transmission strength there.
You do, but there are installations across the world that don't require government approval to operate. So it's maybe not your backyard astronomer, but maybe your ex-Soviet military installation.
Who decides to put up his YouTube channel.
With the director who has very different views. And some of the things we've transmitted into space are not suitable to be discussed on this podcast. And they're out there. They're slowly going through the interstellar medium and they're slowly decaying. But we have sent some things that even if we managed to pick them up and translate what they were, we would either think, I have no idea what that means, or, man, that's gross. It could be either.
Okay, cool.
But the inverse square law does help with that.
Yeah. So even the bad stuff decays, quite rapidly as you go further away.
It does mean you need a fairly sizable dish to transmit to
you would.
Any distance with any strength of signal left at the other end. So it's going to, as you say, it's not just anybody in the backyard. It's got to have a fairly
It wouldn't be just listening into our broadcast. Our broadcasts are not going to be strong enough. At that distance.
Okay, great.
Just our everyday broadcast, it would definitely have to be targeted.
The things that Proxima could hear if they were listening to us would be things like the radar that we use to track deep space probes. So when we send a probe like Voyager or New Horizons out into space, and we want to know where it is, what you do is you send a concentrated radar pulse towards where you think it is, and then the radar pulse gets reflected back off the satellite and comes back to you, and you go, okay, it took me this long for it to come and go back, so I know roughly how far away it is, and that's called ranging. Mm-hmm. When you do this ranging thing, you fire a pulse, and it's initially very focused to start with, but the fact is, as the transmission keeps going, the angle doesn't change, but because you're going further away, the size at the other side gets bigger, right? It's trigonometry. So you get this bigger and bigger sphere of stuff being sent towards your probe, and a bunch of that will hit the probe and come back, but the vast majority keeps going into space. And it's that kind of stuff that Proxima would easily spot. So if we accidentally shot something at Proxima like that, they would see that. And also even more domestic things like the radar that airports use. We reckon that with technology that's coming in the next 25 years, we could detect that certainly at Proxima and much further away. So we could detect JFK Airport at 5 or 6, perhaps even 10 to almost 100 light years.
Okay, I think we are at time. Do you guys want to say anything to wrap up? I think we're done here, guys.
The Edinburgh International Science Festival, founded in 1989, is an educational charity that aims to inspire people of all ages and backgrounds to discover the world around them. The 2-week festival gives audiences amazing experiences through a diverse program of innovative events. We offer our special thanks to Amanda Tyndall, the creative director of the festival, for inviting us to take part. Please join us again in 2 weeks when we bring you the second part of our conversations with the directors of METI International. This has been Transmission Podcast, hosted by Cecilia Lynn Jacobs and produced by Ian Garrett and Kate Leidenheim. Original composition and sound editing by Miles Avery. Transmission is a podcast and performance series speculating on what might happen if we began to receive the popular broadcasts of intelligent alien life, and follows 2 sisters selected to lead an interstellar mission to make first contact. Learn more about our team and upcoming performances at luxcetera.com, and find us on Facebook and Twitter at Luxcetera. That's LUXTATERRA. Transmission is a production of Toaster Lab in Canada and is a fiscally sponsored project of Fractured Atlas in the United States.